You know his voice even if you don't know his name. Whisperin Bill Anderson isn't just a country singer, he's a living thread that ties the golden age of Nashville to the world we know today. At 87 years old, he's still writing songs, still keeping to himself, and still carrying the quiet confidence of a man who's seen it all. While others chased fame with fireworks, Bill made a legacy with a whisper. But what does his life actually look like now off stage, away from the spotlight? Where does he live? What kind of car does a country legend drive? What happened to his marriages, his children, and his millions? This is the untold story of Bill Anderson's lifestyle today. And it's not what most people expect, because while the charts moved on and the crowds got younger, Bill Anderson kept whispering his way through history and into something far more valuable than fame, longevity, peace, and a life built one lyric at a time. Long before he was known as Whisperin Bill, he was just James William Anderson III, a quiet kid growing up in Columbia, South Carolina, and later in Decatur, Georgia. His voice wasn't booming, and he didn't strum a guitar with the fire of a rebel. But what he did have was a pen, and that pen changed everything. While attending the University of Georgia, studying journalism of all things, Bill wrote a song that would define his future. It was called City Lights, and it got picked up by none other than Ray Price. The track soared to number 1 in 1958 and stayed there for weeks. Suddenly, a college kid became one of the most talked about young writers in Nashville. From there, it was a slow and steady rise. Bill wasn't flashy, he didn't wear rhinestones or belt into the MIC. He had a whisper, a twang, and an unmatched ability to make you feel something deep. His breakthrough hits like Still, Mama Sang a Song, I Get the Fever, and Post Folks weren't just country music, they were country life, laid bare and bruised, sung gently enough to hush a honky-tonk. By the 1960s, Bill had become a staple at the Grand Ole Opry. Not just performing, he became one of its pillars. But Bill wasn't just a singer, he was a songwriter's songwriter. While he stacked hits of his own, he was quietly writing hits for others. Connie Smith, George Strait, Brad Paisley, Kenny Chesney, and even artists outside of country. In a business that burns fast and forgets even faster, Bill found his power behind the curtain, earning royalties, shaping the future of the genre and always staying relevant without chasing trends. Through it all, he stayed humble. He didn't chase the biggest spotlight, but he built the most enduring one. For every $1 million moment he had, he reinvested in the music, recording, writing, and supporting others. By the time most of his peers had faded out or flamed out, Bill was still whispering, still working, and still proving that sometimes the softest voice leaves the deepest echo. For all the songs he wrote about love, heartbreak, and family, Bill Anderson's own personal life has seen its fair share of emotional turbulence. In 1959, just as his music career was beginning to catch fire, Bill married Bea Anderson. Together they had 2 children, Jamie and Terry. And for a time it looked like he had the perfect country life, a beautiful young family, a rising career, and a future paved in music and memories. But as his fame grew, so did the distance. The late nights, long tours, constant studio sessions, and public demands made it harder to be present at home. Fame gave him everything, and yet it quietly chipped away at his marriage. After a decade together, Bill and Bea divorced in 1969. It was quiet, but not painless. Years later, Bill would try again. His second marriage, this time to Becky Anderson, seemed like a fresh start, but the old patterns returned. The music industry never really sleeps, and neither did Bill. Always writing, always working, always pulled in a dozen directions. His second marriage, like the first, ended in divorce. For a man who could put any emotion into a perfect 3-minute song, love in real life didn't come with an easy melody. Still, Bill never lost his bond with his children. He has spoken fondly of Jamie and Terry in interviews, calling them his greatest treasures. They didn't chase fame, and they never became tabloid material. Instead, they stayed close, especially in his later years. Family gatherings, holidays, birthdays, they became sacred. Bill might have missed a lot in the earlier years, but he's tried to make up for it in the time he has now. But perhaps the most devastating personal blow came in 2021 when Bill lost his beloved granddaughter. The pain of that moment still lingers. He doesn't speak about it much publicly, but the sorrow is there in his eyes, in his voice, and in the occasional lyric that cuts a little deeper than usual. Behind all the awards, the honors, and the smiling public appearances, there's a man who knows what it's like to hurt deeply. Bill Anderson didn't just write songs about heartbreak, he lived them. Bill Anderson doesn't live in a flashy mansion perched high in the Hollywood Hills. Nor does he reside in some sprawling Texas ranch surrounded by steel gates and security cameras. Instead, at 87 years old, he's chosen a quieter, more grounded life rooted deeply in the place that gave him everything, Nashville, Tennessee. His home is tucked away in a peaceful suburb just outside the city, far from the flashing lights of Broadway and the endless noise of downtown. It's the kind of neighborhood where the mailman still waves and neighbors still drop off casseroles during hard times. His house is modest by celebrity standards, but it holds something far more valuable than marble floors and chandeliers: history. The walls are lined with decades of memories, gold records, handwritten lyrics, and black and white photos of Bill sharing stages with legends like Patsy Cline, George Jones, and little Jimmy Dickens. In one corner, there's an old guitar that's worn down from use, not for show. There's a sunroom where he writes and a porch where he sips his morning coffee while the birds sing. Bill's life has always been about simplicity, and his home reflects that perfectly. But that's not the only property he quietly owns. Somewhere in the Tennessee hills, far away from even the outskirts of Nashville, Bill has a private cabin, a retreat where he disappears when the world feels too loud. Friends say it's where he goes to write without distraction, walk through the trees, and reflect. The cabin has no internet, no modern distractions, just nature, notebooks, and memories. It's here that some of his most personal unreleased work lives, pages and pages of lyrics no one has heard and maybe never will. Despite being one of the most legendary figures in country music, Bill doesn't seek attention. He values peace, routine, and familiarity. While younger stars show off designer homes on social media, Bill Anderson stays true to who he's always been, a songwriter who built a home not just with wood and bricks, but with soul. His surroundings. They aren't loud, because they don't need to be. His life is rich with meaning, not material. Bill Anderson has never been the kind of star to flash his wealth. While some of his country music peers collected luxury cars, speedboats, and diamond-studded everything, Bill built a different kind of life, quiet, intentional, and understated. But that doesn't mean he hasn't enjoyed the fruits of his long successful career, he just did it his way. Back in the 1960s and 70s, Bill had a deep love for Cadillacs. He once called them a gentleman's way to travel. And for years, his prized vehicle was a 1965 Cadillac Coupe de Ville, gleaming with chrome and full of Southern swagger. He's kept it to this day, fully restored and housed in his garage like a living monument to country music's golden era. It's not just a car, it's a memory on wheels. These days, Bill doesn't drive much himself, but when he does need to get around, it's usually in a comfortable, reliable Lincoln or Bic. Nothing flashy, just smooth and classic. Inside his home, the luxury comes in a different form. You won't find million-dollar art or high-tech entertainment rooms. Instead, you'll find priceless artifacts, a framed handwritten lyric sheet from Still, vintage microphones from his days on the Grand Ole Opry stage, and a custom-built bookshelf stacked with songwriting notebooks spanning over 6 decades. He even has a pair of boots worn during his first Opry performance, scuffed, cracked, and worth more to him than any car could ever be. His closet holds every embroidered jacket he ever wore on stage, custom-tailored for a man who made classy cowboy look effortless. Those nudie-style suits with rhinestones and country flair are preserved with care. Each one tied to a different memory, a different song, a different chapter. And yes, he's a millionaire, though he rarely talks about it. Friends say Bill lives comfortably, not lavishly. He never needed to prove anything to anyone. His wealth is in what he's created, in what still echoes across radios, jukeboxes, and hearts. For Bill Anderson, true luxury isn't in what you show off, it's in what lasts. Behind Bill Anderson's soft voice and humble persona is a man with razor-sharp business instincts. From the very beginning, Bill didn't just chase chart toppers, he chased ownership. He understood something that many artists even today still overlook: the real money in music isn't always in the performance, it's in the publishing. That's why early in his career, Bill insisted on retaining the rights to his songs. When City Lights became a hit, he didn't just collect applause, he collected royalties. And those royalties didn't stop when the radio faded, they kept flowing decade after decade. With over 1,000 songs to his name, Bill built a songwriting empire brick by brick. His compositions were recorded by everyone from George Strait to Kenny Chesney. And each play meant another check. He didn't need to tour constantly, his catalogue worked for him while he slept. And Bill wasn't just smart with lyrics, he was smart with dollars. He reinvested his earnings into real estate, Nashville studio shares, and publishing rights that grew in value over time. In the 1990s and 2000s, while some of his contemporaries were fading from the public eye, Bill pivoted to television, hosting game shows and country music specials, not for fame, but for residuals and brand control. He knew how to keep his name relevant without exhausting himself. He also started speaking at music business seminars, mentoring younger artists on how to protect their work and avoid the traps he saw so many fall into. Today, his estimated net worth sits comfortably between 8 and 12 million. It's not just the result of hit songs, it's the result of structure, ownership, and a deep understanding of value. And unlike others who lost fortunes in divorce, lawsuits, or bad deals, Bill played it slow, played it safe, and played it smart. Whisperin Bill may have spoken softly, but when it came to business, he roared, quietly, strategically, and always with purpose. At 87 years old, Bill Anderson doesn't move like he used to, but his spirit remains untouched. These days, his mornings start early. He's usually up before the sun, sitting on his back porch with a cup of coffee and a notepad. Sometimes he writes lyrics, sometimes just thoughts. He said in interviews that writing every day, even a single sentence, keeps him feeling young. That discipline has been with him his entire life, and now more than ever, it's what grounds him. Physically, the years have taken their toll. He's dealt with arthritis in his knees and shoulders, the kind of quiet pain that lingers with age. There was also a health scare over a decade ago that forced him to slow down. Doctors told him to cut back on travel and stress. But Bill didn't see it as a curse. He saw it as a reason to finally pause and focus on the simple joys he'd missed during his whirlwind career. His routine is slow and intentional now. Breakfast is usually eggs, grits, and fruit. He avoids anything too heavy and drinks more water than he ever did in his touring days. Lunch is often light, salads or sandwiches, and dinner is Southern comfort food in moderation. Fried chicken might make a rare appearance, but he's more likely to opt for grilled fish these days. And while he used to enjoy the occasional drink, back in the day, now it's sweet tea or water. He doesn't drive himself much anymore, relying on close friends or family to help him get around. On days when his joints allow, he walks a little in the garden or along the neighborhood paths. He says the stillness brings him clarity. But even with the physical slowdown, his mind is sharper than ever. He remembers names, dates, lyrics, stories. He's still got that steel trap memory every songwriter envies. Though the stage isn't a regular place for him anymore, he still appears at the Grand Ole Opry, sometimes just to watch, sometimes to sing a line or two. The crowd always rises, the respect never fades. Bill Anderson may not be racing across the country anymore, but in every quiet step, every morning page, and every whispered word, he's still moving forward gracefully, gratefully, and always in tune with the life he's built. Bill Anderson's legacy isn't defined by a single moment, it's defined by consistency, craftsmanship, and an unmatched ability to connect. With over 1,000 recorded songs to his name, he's not just a country singer, he's a country institution. His whisper became a signature, his lyrics became scripture for generations of artists who followed. But perhaps what's most remarkable is how he remained relevant across every era, from vinyl to streaming, from the Grand Ole Opry to YouTube retrospectives. He's a member of the Country Music Hall of Fame, the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame, and the Songwriters Hall of Fame. He's received the CMA Song of the Year award, earned multiple Grammy nominations, and holds one of the longest-running memberships in Grand Ole Opry history, over 60 years. And yet, despite the accolades, Bill has always remained grounded. He's never let awards define him. In fact, he once said, "I don't write for trophies, I write for people." His influence spans generations. Brad Paisley has openly credited Bill as a mentor and songwriting hero. Taylor Swift cited his lyrical storytelling as an early inspiration. You can feel his fingerprints all over modern country music, even in artists who never met him, because when you write truth, it echoes forever. His memoir, Whisperin Bill Anderson, An Unprecedented Life in Country Music, offers a deeper look into his journey, not just the glitz, but the grit. It's a testament to persistence, faith, and the power of words. And for fans who grew up on his music, it's a love letter to a life lived with purpose. Today, in his Nashville home, his walls are lined with awards. But right next to them are handwritten notes from fans, crayon drawings from grandkids, and black and white photos from the road. That's how Bill measures success, not by fame or fortune, but by connection. He's not just part of country music history, he is country music history, and he's still writing it. As Bill Anderson enters what may be the final chapter of his extraordinary life, there's no fear in his voice, only reflection. He's not chasing a legacy, he's already built one. These days, life moves slowly, and Bill lets it. He takes time with his thoughts. He writes without deadlines. He smiles a little longer when family visits. And when fans write him letters, he reads every single one. Sometimes he even writes back, in longhand, the way he used to write his lyrics. In a world obsessed with noise, Bill chooses silence. He's traded the spotlight for sunrises, applause for peace, and the roar of the crowd for the whisper of memory. He's not as strong as he once was. The long walks have turned into short strolls. The once unstoppable hands that played guitar for hours now move more carefully. But the heart, it's still all there. His eyes still light up when he hears an old song on the radio. And he still gets emotional talking about the Opry, his fans, and the people he's loved and lost along the way. Regrets, of course, he's been honest about them. Time missed with his children. Marriages that ended quietly. The years when the road mattered more than the kitchen table. But Bill doesn't dwell. He's turned regret into gratitude. He's made peace with every note, every word, every silence. Now more than ever, he values the little things, a hot meal, a phone call from an old friend, a grandchild's laugh. He once said, "I've lived loud enough through song that now I just want to listen." And that's exactly what he's doing. Listening, reflecting, whispering back at life as it slows down around him. When the day comes that Bill Anderson takes his final bow, it won't be a tragedy. It'll be a closing chapter on one of the most quietly powerful lives in country music history. And his whisper, it'll never really stop. It'll live on in the radio static between stations, in the verses sung softly at back porch gatherings, in the memories of fans who heard not just a voice, but a soul. Because Bill Anderson didn't need to shout to be heard. He whispered and we listened. There's one more chapter to Bill Anderson's story that fans rarely talk about, but it may be the most important of all, his role as a quiet mentor and guardian of country music soul. Long after the tours slowed down and the chart toppers faded, Bill never stopped giving back. Behind closed doors, he's helped guide countless young artists, songwriters, and producers, many of whom never publicly mention his name, but quietly carry his wisdom into every lyric they write. He's hosted songwriting workshops for veterans. He's sat backstage at the Opry, listening to nervous newcomers, offering advice, not with ego, but with care. People don't leave a conversation with Bill Anderson feeling impressed, they leave feeling understood. That's his gift. He's the kind of man who remembers your story, not just your name. In an industry that too often chews people up and spits them out, Bill has been a soft place to land. In recent years, he's used his platform to champion the value of storytelling in music. He's pushed back gently but firmly against the overly commercial wave sweeping through country radio. If you forget the story, he once said, you forget the soul. That's why even in his 80s, he still collaborates with artists who care about lyrics. He doesn't chase trends, he preserves truth. He's also quietly supported music preservation charities, donated memorabilia to archives,